Hello, and welcome to the Quantum Leap Gypsy Library from EASTWEST. I'm David Earle, and I'll be your host as we explore through these sounds, inspired by gypsy culture from as far as Romania, Spain, Argentina, and Uruguay. This library was produced by Nick Phoenix and Doug Rogers, and features musicians such as David Cole on guitars, Harry Scorzo on violin, and Bobby Carpenter on accordions. Let's see what makes this library so special, and how you can use it in your own productions. So the Gypsy Library is a collection of instruments that are commonly used in the really energetic and ornamental gypsy style. These instruments are accordions, guitars, violin, trombone, percussion, flamenco dancers, and even some more rare sounds like hammered dulcimer and bandoneon. If we go into the browser here, we can see the different folders which are organized by instrument. And within the folders, we have the different articulations. So if I go to bandoneon, we can go to elements and get our individual articulations, or we could go to the master and get a key switched instrument so that we can play all the different types of tones of the instrument by pressing on these keys down below. If I go to something like the violin, you'll see that the violin master has a lot of key switches to play a lot of different articulations. If I go to something like Django guitar, not only do we have lead sounds, but we also have something called chord master, which allows us to play different types of chords by using the key switching. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But you'll see when you see elements, it's going to load in individual articulations that you can choose for yourself. And when you have master, they're going to be key switched for you already. So if I load something like Django lead elements and go to the player, you'll see that the elements have loaded here, the articulations have loaded, but they're not active. If I choose to make them active, I simply turn them on and then mix them to my own taste. So let's listen to some examples of these instruments and talk about them a little bit. I'd like to start with the accordions. So I'm going to use the musette, and what we have here, you'll see that the keyboard down below has been bifurcated into three sections. Down below we have the key switches, then we have the left hand, and then this larger playable area is going to be the right hand. And the key switches down below, the first key switch is going to allow us to play single notes in the left hand or chords. And it sounds something like this. Usually what I do is I create 3 tracks, one for the right hand, one for the left hand, and then one for the key switching. So every chord that you heard, whether it changed from major to minor, was being selected by the key switch. Very, very cool stuff. If I go to the next one, we have the bandoneon, which is a really special instrument that's usually played in Argentina for tangos and things like that, or it's also found in Uruguay. And here's kind of what it sounds like. It's got a full set of buttons on the left and the right-hand side, and the key switching down here will allow you to play different reed selections in the left hand. And there's a crossover, so you can hear it crossing over between the left and right hand, and it's placed between the left and right speaker. Now you hear a lot of effects going on there, and that's because in the mixer, I have added the SSL suite of processing here, which is really great. Basically, we get an SSL channel strip to be able to augment the sound. It's pretty amazing. One of my favorite sounds in the Gypsy library is the cymbalom. It's a hammered dulcimer that came out of Eastern Europe, and all of the articulations are down here below on the key switch, and it does things like have tremolo, we have double hit like flam type things, but the tone of it is just absolutely amazing. This is something like what it sounds like. So just like a real cymbalom, we have the ability to hold the sustain pedal down, which is the equivalent of opening the dampers on the cymbalom. And that's pretty cool. It has a really beautiful tone. It's very, very well recorded. Now, getting into the guitars, we have this one guitar that's called the Django guitar, and what's beautiful about it is it gives us, in an octave range, the octaves are playing in the same transposition. So when I play chords, you'll see that I'm playing an octave apart with my hand, but it gives me the ability to play more like Django would actually play. Django's style was very like that kind of a feel. And then down below, I'm able to switch between different chords. So it's really neat. And when you get up top, you even get into like little effects and taps and stuff, which is beautiful, and a really great rendition and recording that really honors Django Reinhardt, who is an amazing guitarist. Then we get into our flam chords. This is more of a Spanish-style flamenco feel. So these are chords that are being played. And again, you can play them in an octave, which makes it, as a keyboard player, easier to perform. And as you see down below, there are a lot of different articulations that they have for this instrument. Like I said before, the gypsy sound is very ornate, and there are a lot of special techniques that are used in gypsy music that is used nowhere else. So when I come into the Flamenco Master, this is like a lead guitar. So you can hear that there are the players playing near the bridge at one point. That's one of the articulations. There are taps. There's also even effects like tapping on the guitar, which is very, very cool. We also have gypsy percussion, which is kind of fun. Yeah, rock is a good time. It's got things like washboard and some, crazy cymbals and things like that. It's a lot of fun. When we get into the violins are amazing. They could be used for either classical or for gypsy music. They're really well done and beautifully played. So this is called Fast Attack Violin Legato. And how you play the violin, you can hear that it's slurring between notes depending on how I play the notes, how close the notes are to each other. And then you get additional expression through the mod wheel. Making for a very expressive instrument. Really beautiful. The Violin Master has all of the different articulations that can be played on the violin. A lot of extended techniques and strange stuff, as well as the more standard articulations that you hear. So some more normal ones like... and then some weirder ones. You get a little scratch on it, a little bit of that little anger in the playing. But it's a really beautiful instrument, especially like the harmonic playing is really beautiful near the bridge stuff. Trombone, there's another instrument that could either be played more traditionally, or you could play it in the gypsy style. It's got a lot of neat articulations as well. Cool stuff. Then they have the legato one where you can get really silly with the trombone. Let's talk a little bit about the player. In the player, we have delay that we can use. We have reverb that's built in. We have a filter. We have an amplitude envelope, automatic double tracking, a stereo doubler, and then we have source where we can choose whether it's going to be stereo or mono. And then in the mixer, of course, we have our suite of SSL effects. When I go into the player, automatic double tracking is essentially giving us it's the same as if we had recorded to another tape machine, the same exact part, put it on another tape machine, and allowed the wow and flutter and natural variation in the other tape machine to create a stereo sound. You can hear that sort of natural chorusing, and it's a really neat effect. The stereo double is a little bit more like a Haas effect, where it's creating a delay between the left and right side. Then we have a standard delay. Good stuff. The play engine now includes 2 additional effects in the mixer. One's called Amp Simulator and the other is Homicide. Amp Simulator gives you simulations of different types of amplifiers and the microphones that were used to record them. So we've got a Mesa Boogie amplifier recorded with a 421. Here's one with a D112, RE20, Josephson 22S, and SM57. Pretty standard, awesome microphones for recording different amplifiers. You can switch it on just by hitting power and playback. So my innocent young little cymbal on there now is distorted all to hell because I can add a bunch of drive and add a little bit of EQ. Choose pre or post to go behind the SSL channel strip or in front of it. Give me a little bit of a different effect. Then after the amp simulator, we have something called Homicide. So check this out. I have this gypsy percussion going through this plugin called Homicide. Homicide is a multi-band distortion plugin. Essentially, it starts with a noise gate at the top here, which you're able to tweak using threshold, attack, release, and amount. And then immediately after that, you have some tone shaping controls. You have shape and body, which change the timbre of the distortion. You have the gain of the distortion. And then down below, you have the different types of distortion. So there are 3 categories: standard, triple X, and odd. Up top, you can select where the crossover between the bands is going to be by turning these 3 knobs. And on each of these bands, you can have a separate type of distortion. You can mix it together with the channel strip down at the bottom and apply different amounts of feedback. This allows for the beautiful destruction of sounds. So your innocent gypsy percussion, which used to sound something like this, when you apply a harsh gate to it and distortion and saturation, it can sound like this. And that's being nice. If you really get into this, you can make some very twisted sounds. Now, the other thing you can do, I've got this flamenco guitar going through Homicide, and you've got these presets in the upper right-hand side. You can save these presets and then switch between them, and you'll note that the knobs down here, if you watch these knobs, they will change. So they morph between each preset, allowing you to change the sound over time. So that can be kind of fun. You can actually have that change over time within any of your pieces. Anyway, that's Homicide. There's a lot in there. Have fun, play around with it. It's a pretty intuitive plugin. You should just get your hands dirty in it and play around. I think you'll have a lot of fun. So the Play Engine will work in any host, of course, whether you have Ableton Live or Logic or Pro Tools, whatever your weapon of choice, the Play Engine will play very well within it. And the Play 5 has been very well optimized to work within those systems. I hope that you explore Play. I've only showed you a couple of the instruments to give you an idea of the different types that we have. There are other accordions and there are other guitars, and even things like a flamenco dancer that they call Senorita, who's going to dance for you if you like. All right, well, enjoy Gypsy. I hope that you explore it and have a lot of fun with it, and I'll see you next time. Now, let's have a listen to an audio example of just what's possible with Gypsy.